Hi, welcome back to another edition of Max and Nikki 1000th Time Reactions.
On this episode, we're going to be listening to Imagine by John Lennon.
This song we've definitely listened to way more than 1,000 times. This is one of the most ubiquitous songs in the world.
Is. I mean,
Let's do it. We're going to react to Imagine by John Lennon. But before we do, as I usually like to do, is I remind you that we have another channel called Max and Nikki on which we perform oldies, tunes, jazz standards, and originals in that vein. And we
That's
also
right.
have comedy videos on there as well. Anyway, let's get into it. Imagine by John Lennon for our 1000th time. Here we go.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, or brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
Imagine by John Lennon. There you
It
have it.
really is a great song, you know? I mean, it's...
It is, and there you go. Were we talking about this on a previous video? But there you go, having strings in a 70s song there.
Sure, yes. We were just talking about that in the video we had done for You've Lost That Love and Feeling, but coincidentally, funnily enough, both songs were produced or co-produced by Phil Spector, actually.
Really?
Actually,
Phil Spector?
this whole album was produced, well, at least co-produced by Phil Spector.
By
You
the
can
way, I
watch
noticed-
actually footage of the recording sessions, not particularly this song, but for the song "How Do You Sleep," which is off of the same album, and Phil Spector is in there at certain points. Yeah, so co-produced by Phil Spector along with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. You know, and Phil Spector was known to use strings a lot, and they're used very well in this. And I feel like this doesn't really utilize a wall of sound kind of thing.
Well, I think when Phil Spector, the work that he did later on in the 70s didn't utilize as much of what he, even on the Let It Be album, it doesn't have that same wall of sound effect that we're familiar with from his early 60s work.
And if you don't know, Phil Spector ended up producing the final mixes of the Let It Be album, much to the chagrin of Paul McCartney, actually.
Right, but he did also produce what's the George Harrison All Things Must Pass. He did
did that too,
or co-produced it with,
and actually
with George Harrison.
the song What Is Life?
Yeah,
that definitely utilizes a wall of sound.
Yeah, no, there's some
really cool on
there's
that.
some songs on that album that definitely have, there's more reverb
But
out
this
on it.
this album, Imagine, is actually a little bit more stripped down and kind of more raw. Listen to the song "Oh My Love," another really beautiful ballad. I really love that song, "Oh My Love." Also, the song "How Do You Sleep" is really cool too.
How Do You Sleep is good. A lot of people think it was directed towards Paul McCartney at the time, but
John Lennon was known to have changed his mind about the meanings of songs throughout the years.
Right. And
Maybe
we're not
at one
exactly
point he
sure.
would have thought that was directed toward Paul, but later on in his life, he said, it could have been about me,
Well, I think he also even had one point he said, it might have been the inkling might have started out with Paul, but it became another thing. Like sometimes, like I've written a song that was, the lyrics were based on somebody, but it
eventually
wasn't
became something else.
It wasn't about complete. It wasn't 100% factual or anything.
Sure,
about
I mean,
that person. It just based on them very loosely.
Sure.
You draw inspiration, so it might have been just they had a little bit of a falling out at that time, I think, and
Right.
we're not totally on speaking terms, but that's
eventually,
a whole other story about the breakup.
but eventually they would reconcile
to a degree, but I think Paul McCartney has said he wishes that they kind of he's like, I'm happy, I was grateful that we were able to kind of somewhat work it out, but he's like, I wish we kind of just got everything out in the open about everything that we had problems with and just totally laid it all to rest,
at this period of time, by the way, this was the early 70s, there was a lot of, I would call, mismanagement from the Beatles manager, Alan Klein, who was the manager at the time. And Ringo, John, and George wanted to go with Alan Klein as the manager for the Beatles, and Paul wanted to go with Linda McCartney's father, Linda Eastman's father.
Right.
And Paul McCartney lost out in that vote, and eventually that is kind of maybe the main reason why the Beatles broke up, actually, was the mismanagement by Alan Klein.
Well, part of it. I think part of it was also just, I mean, you guys have watched the Get Back documentary. It did seem that, although I guess apparently they had another album that they were talking about, doing, and then a week later after the meeting about that new album, John Lennon decided to quit officially, but I think
there were other reasons. If you watch the
think,
Get Back documentary, you can see that Paul is really trying his hardest to maintain.
Well, I just think
band,
that they're kind of and they've been together, working a lot all the time, and I think they were just exhausted.
Well, I think
people wanted to try new things. I think George wanted to. Well, he had a bunch of songs that he wanted to just. Get out in the open on his own.
George had said something to the degree of.
Why don't we have solo?
I'm talking here. Right, he said, well, what if we released solo albums concurrently with Beatles output so we can have the best of both worlds,
Sure.
In the same way that, maybe Tom York releases solo albums that are not necessarily associated with Radiohead or Phil Collins did with Genesis.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And things of that nature,
The Phil Collins Genesis thing, his style is so similar to Genesis. Sometimes I actually am not sure, was this a Phil Collins song or a Genesis song?
I feel the same way about Tom York and Radiohead. I'm just thinking, why wouldn't he bring this to Radiohead, Especially if a band like Radiohead, whose sound is ever changing and it keeps evolving, why not just bring that?
Right, and it seems like, I don't know the interpersonal relationships of the band, but it sounds like they get on well with each other. So.
I guess maybe it just depends on the working relationship and how they write songs. Maybe some of the songs that maybe they have more of a collaborative effort with things, and maybe he wanted to just do something on his own,
or maybe he just wanted to try working with other musicians. Maybe Maybe he was just like,
Sure.
well, just for the kicks, just for kicks.
I
let's
mean,
try
what's
these
funny
other guys.
about this album, Imagine, is George Harrison plays on a good amount of it. He plays on the song "How Do You Sleep" and on "Oh My Love,"
And Ringo does
And
as
Ringo
well.
does as well. And you have Nicky Hopkins and Klaus
Vorman?
on here as well. And, Nicky Hopkins was a keyboardist, and Klaus Vorman was a bassist.
Plus, Vorman also was an artist as well.
Sure, he
fine arts.
famously designed the album cover for Revolver.
Mm-hmm.
But that's neither here nor there. This song is really good. Imagine it's.
I know we haven't really.
We really go on. Well, we are talking about the whole album because the whole album, this song is so well known. But I urge you, if you don't know about the rest of the songs of the album, you should check out the rest of the album. It's a really good album.
It is, but this song is iconic. I think part of it is just It's kind of a song about bringing people together, And
There's also something, about the death of John Lennon.
and
that
then playing this
song
at, I think
is
at,
sort
the,
of
at their kind of his
connected with that
memorial.
somehow.
Yeah, I think there's a
and
yeah.
it has a kind of a bittersweet quality to it.
Right.
And it's. Oh, I wanted to. We didn't talk enough about the song. I just want to say that it's interesting. The beginning of the song starts off with this piano that is less in stereo, and then later on it becomes more full.
Can I talk about that?
Becomes
Let
has
me-
a more
Can I
full
explain
sound.
about that? That is not, I don't believe, in the original mix of it when it came out in the 70s. We're listening to something that's called the Ultimate Mix, which apparently came out, I think, in 2019 or something like that. And it was it's a fairly new mix of this album that got the okay by, I think, Yoko Ono and the estate of John Lennon. And so I think that's a new addition to the mix.
I do really like the sound of the piano in this song. The quality of the piano. It's famously recorded on John Lennon's white Yamaha grand piano, or I think it might have been a baby grand piano. And you can watch the music video of it, and you see what the white piano looks like.
Anyway, this is a great tune. It's a classic. And I think that'll do it for this reaction.
Yeah. If you like what you saw today or heard, please hit that subscribe button and ding that post notification bell to find out about more Max and Nikki reaction videos.
Keep tuning in.